from the point you get those calves, the first 60 days is crucial. And if you do one thing wrong, it's a downhill train wreck. I get the features wrong as much as anybody else. And we have sick cattle, but at the end of the day, I think that we're 70% right. And as long as you're 51% right, you're making money. But I wanted to be something. I wanted to leave something for my kids one day and make my granddad and my dad proud. And, you know, there's a lot of people that they'll never work that hard. I've had people tell me before, you're willing to work too hard. But the work doesn't matter to me. I want to use every skill that I got. And if there's an opportunity to do something, why would you sit on your ass and not do anything?
Welcome back to the Wealthy Cowboy Show. Today we have a guy I've heard a lot about. Glad to finally meet him, Tucker Teague from Hamlin. If you're around little small town of Hamlin, you probably know him very well. He's got a lot going on out there. How's it going, Tucker?
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'm glad to get to talk to you because you're somebody that a lot of guests have on, like have been on other podcasts or done other stuff, so I can research them. I can't really research you. You don't have that much out there besides people that know you, but you were suggested on a post I made to have on here, and I got to looking. I think I'd accidentally run across y'all's cattle page, and y'all were shipping a whole crap load of cattle, and I think it was like a deal gathering them and everything. And I was like, this is pretty interesting. So what's your background?
So I grew up on a ranch and feedlot in Fort Morgan, Colorado. Back in the day, we used to feed a lot of cattle, run mama cows in Colorado and Nebraska. And I grew up just working on the ranch, feeding cattle with my dad, shoveling bunks, driving feed truck. And that's where I got a love for the industry. My parents instilled that in me since I was a little bitty kid. I remember riding pens and riding four-wheelers gathering when I was 6, 7 years old, driving feed truck with a pillow under my butt. And grew up there. And when I was 15 years old, our ranch manager quit on our Colorado ranch. And I told Dad, I said, don't hire anybody. I'll just do it after school. It was just a cow-calf deal. And I'd done it all my life. So that's kind of what I did when I was high school. And then I left high school and went to Texas A&M for one semester. My granddad was a cattle buyer from the Abilene area. And when he passed away in 2016, I dropped out of school and moved up there in my pickup and lived in a hotel and started building fence and started out with 30 head of cattle. Then my dad loaned me the money to buy. And then I was taking care of them on my own and feeding cattle for Dad. And we were shipping cattle to feedlots in the north. And so that's kind of where I got started. And it's just Dad and I, we talked about I was supposed to go back to school. He said, well, just do an internship under a cattle buyer. So I did that for one semester. And I was supposed to go back to school after that. Well, we never talked about it again. So,
you were just hooked on the cattle buyer part?
Well, I hated school. I'll tell you what, it's not that the bookwork or anything like that bothered me, but it seemed like everybody just wanted to party and drink, and I was more focused. I had a hay business when I was in college, and I wanted to get to work. I wanted to get out of there as quick as I could. I'd call my dad about every day and tell him I was quitting, and we'd get in yelling matches. He'd say, no, you're not leaving, and finally he couldn't control it. Last day of that semester, I packed my trailer and my horses, and I left. And I didn't even tell him I was leaving, and I went back 6 months later and sold my house. But I just wanted to work. I wanted to be in the cattle business. I knew that, a degree wasn't what was going to make me. It was going to be my work ethic. And I'm doing right now what I wanted to do. When I was in college, I was touring around, visiting the big dogs, Pete Bonds, Swartner, Capital Land and Livestock, and taking notes. I'd leave every weekend because that's where I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And when the sellers deal kind of went out, bless Chaz's heart, that's kind of where we fell in, and that's what I do today is the Sellers Cattle Company. That's what we operate, and it's an awesome life, man.
Yeah. So how did you get started? You got started on 30 head. You said, were you putting together yearlings and straightening them out and selling them, or how did all that evolve?
So it's a family operation. So when we started, I had nothing. I was working for my dad and my mom. We were actually buying cattle down here, straightening them out in Hamlin, and sending them to Colorado to feed them. And then we'd grow them in Colorado. We had a really cheap ration, a lot of commodities up there. There was a beet pulp facility where we'd get beet tailings and whatnot really cheap. And so that's kind of how we got started. And then I got my own line of credit, started buying a few cattle, Dad helping me finance them. And but one thing I've always wanted to do is I wanted to be part of what my mom and dad did, because they have a huge legacy. But I never wanted to be somebody that just relied on them and wanted to check. I wanted to learn and do it on my own. So I learned the hard knocks, the good and the bad, and what went wrong. And my mom and dad are awesome because they always believed in me and give me every opportunity in the world to succeed. But at the same time, I wanted to learn on my own. And so while I was taking care of my dad's cattle, we started partnering on cattle together. I'd buy a pen, he'd buy a pen, and I'd feed mine over here and he'd feed his over here, just so I could see the numbers, the financials, and learn. And then in 2018 or 19, he decided to sell his feed yard in Colorado. And so at that point in time, I think I had 2,000 or 3,000 of my own, and he had 4,000 or 5,000 of his. And he was kind of wanted to change the way he was doing things, getting older, and wanted to kind of retire, be more on the ranch type deal, and mama cows and run cattle on grass. And so I had to kind of step up and take over the deal in Hamlin. And that's when I really started expanding and putting a lot of cattle on feed, growing a lot of cattle. And my parents are awesome. But I just felt like it was time that I step up and take some of that responsibility and go out on my own, because they've been doing it for 40, 50 years. You know, they've been stressed out and they had enough, and the cattle business is stressful enough. So I wanted to give them a chance to retire on their ranch and take it easy. And they had an awesome cattle feeding operation. You look back in the 90s, Teague Diversified was one of the best cattle feeders in the country, custom cattle feeders. And I wanted to take what they've done and built on it. So now we feed cattle with a lot of different feedlots across the country. And our kind of main objective, what we're good at, is buying high-risk cattle that are bulls, straighten them out, no shots. People, you hear these horse stories having 20, 25% death loss. We keep our death loss at 2-3%. And there's a lot of people say I'm lying, but that's where our death loss is at. And it's because we really take our time and tend to those cattle. And we found a niche where that's what makes a lot of money, is if you can get those high-risk cattle and keep them alive and then get them on feed, you're 15, 20% better off than most other yards. These big yards that are shipping them in, they can't keep them alive.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've heard of a lot of people, like, that's what they try to do, is buy those sale barn cattle and cutter bulls and rannied out calves, or whatever, just something that has value add to it. Like you said, that's tough. If you don't stay on top of it, you can lose them just as fast as you can go buy them. What is y'all's strategy there, as far as, is it in your process and riding through them, how you turn them out? What's that look like?
I think it's everything in the world. From the point you get those calves, the first 60 days is crucial. And if you do one thing wrong, it's a downhill train wreck. We buy a lot of calves local in the Texas area, as far as our high-risk cattle go. When we're shipping cattle in off wheat pasture, we buy a lot of cattle out of the north. But as far as the high-risk cattle go, I've got trucks that are sitting at those barns when the buyers are buying, and as soon as that sells over, they're getting them out of there. The cattle are back at my facility that night. They're on feed and good water. Those waters are cleaned every day by my guys. Processed immediately. We let those cattle rest, and then as soon as they're ready to go, they go out to a grass trap. We mass medicate everything, and there's a lot of people that don't like that. But as far as the humanity of the animals and the death loss goes, you pretty much have to do it anymore. A lot of those cattle are fevered when they get there. They've been sitting around a sale barn for 2 or 3 days. Get them that medicine, get them turned out, let them rest. That gives you 7 or 8 days, kind of let those cattle get back on their feet, get going, get trained on feed. So we turn everything out on grass traps, and we feed everything on those grass traps. And it's a nice, easy transition. Those cattle are getting weaned off their moms. They're bawling, they're upset. As soon as the ball's out of them, we've got them on a nice grass pasture and or a wheat field. We push them up to bunks with deadcocks, aramycin in them, get those cattle straightened up and ready to go. Cowboys push the cattle to feed every day, feed and fresh water, and we micromanage it. I mean, my guys, I've got the best crew in the world, and I mean that. we're there every morning at 4:45 to 5:30, depending on daylight. And those guys don't leave till 6, 7 o'clock. And they love it like I do. And they treat every calf like it's their own. You know, we have 12 to 13,000 head of cattle around Hamlin that we're straightening out, but only 2,500 of those are fresh cattle, and the rest of them are just waiting to go to the yard. So each cowboy has about 2,500 head, and they all get together and help each other. And if we got a set that's breaking, we're in them every day, and we doctor in the pasture, rope and doctor, we pull them, whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. We've got hospital pens that are recovery pens. We pull them out of there. A lot of those calves, they can't compete. You know, they've got 200 other calves fighting for feed, and so we pull those cattle out. We get them in a recovery pen with fresh hay, treated feed, and we really baby them. You know, try to get those cattle to recover and save them. We're on a big feedlot. You know, these guys are trying to ride 10,000 head under one man, and they might not even see the sick ones because they have so many cattle to take care of. But I would say it comes down to the success is my crew. And a lot of hard knocks. I've learned everything that's wrong.
Yeah.
I messed up so many times that there's a saying that walk away a little smarter when you wreck one. You know, I've wrecked a lot of sets of cattle, but it's a beast. I mean, you've got coccidiosis, you've got all these diseases. These bugs are mutating, you know, trying to go against any vaccine or drug that you're sticking in them. They're learning they're mutating themselves, and it's an ongoing battle. Mm-hmm. And you mess up one time and you go from a 2% death loss to a 15% death loss. And we run a lot of numbers, you know, so we average out over the course of the year, but we'll have a lot of sets that we'll have no problems with, and then we'll have 2 or 3 that it's a wreck, and there's just nothing you can do about it.
How do you mitigate that with your medicine and your vaccines and everything you're given? Are you always staying in touch with your reps and trying different things, or do you have a certain protocol that you see works more often than not?
We've adapted our protocol over the years. We try to do what's easiest, and you can load these cattle up on vaccines and give them too much where they can't handle the sweat. So we've tried to do what's easy on the calf, but also gets them what they need to be successful. And we give them all that they need and no more than they need. And once they have that, we leave them alone. You know, if they need pulled and they need a shot, we go get them. But we're not out there jacking with them. Mm-hmm. And I would say that we've got our day-to-day protocols really in line, and that's what is good about our operation. But the main thing that pays the bills around our place is our risk management strategy and our program, and just being consistent 365 days out of the year. And that's what we've found in the cattle business, so volatile that the little things that you do every day to day add up, but the market could take you out in an instant. And so we got to do the little things right every day and then protect ourselves on the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned that when we were talking before about how important that office work is, and what is it that you're doing and having to have learned all that, and then having to keep doing that on the day-to-day, not getting to be out there and do cowboy stuff, but having to sit in the office and take care of paperwork and run numbers.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying before we started. You know, when I first was getting going, I was never in the office, you know, maybe 5 minutes a day. I hated riding the desk. And what I come to find out after 4, 5, 6 years is you can lose more in 1 hour outside, working outside, than you can being in there and studying your lesson and pay attention to those futures markets. You know, with what these cattle cost these days, $2,000 a head on a feeder steer, this market's so volatile. One down move, it doesn't matter how many dead calves you have out there. If you're not protected, you lost $200,000-$400,000. And so once I learned the day-to-day protocols of how to keep those cattle alive and give them everything they needed to be successful out there, I went out and I tried to hire the best guys that I could in the state of Texas. And I would say I have some of the best crew possible, and I rely on them a lot. I still go every day with them. We go pull 6, doctor, whatever, but I try to be sitting behind a trading desk at 8:30 when the futures market opens, and I can trade from my desk. And And that's what I love to do. I've been very fortunate and blessed to learn from a lot of very smart and educated people that have been trading for a long time. And I've always been fascinated with the futures market. Since I was 16, 17 years old, I was in my office with my dad until he was blue in the face telling me to get out, asking about put options and call options and how the volatility worked and the delta values worked. And it took me 2-3 years to even grasp it, but I hated that. I wanted to know what was going on, how it's going. And I would say now, we're really successful in what we do because we do the day-to-day things right, but we're able to risk manage and protect those cattle in an awesome way to add dollars to them. There's sets of cattle that we buy that break even. Maybe they make $50 a head or lose $50 a head. And when those cattle leave, they've got $200, $300 a head profit in them through our risk management strategy. And I would say I'm hooked up with some of the best risk managers in the state of Texas, and the guy that I work with is actually out of Montana on a day-to-day basis. And it's extremely important. Without risk management, you'll be out of the business in one day.
Explain that a little bit about all those terms and kind of how it relates. Like, say you get a load of cattle in, what are you doing in the office to mitigate that? What does that risk management look like in those terms you said a while ago?
I know you're getting a lot of value out of the show and hearing these people's stories and hearing how they built their operation, how they started their business, how they took that leap of faith just to get started doing something on their own. But I bet you're wondering, what would they do in your specific situation? Whether you're just wanting to leave your job and go do something on your own, whether you're wanting to start your own ranching operation, whatever that is, or optimize what you have going on already in your own business and your own ranching operation. That's why I've started this mastermind community where you can ask those specific questions and get the answers and get the advice that you're looking for. We're going to have live Q&A calls with past guests, with future guests. We're going to have some exclusive interviews that are only going to be on this mastermind community. I'm not going to be putting them out to the public. You're also going to be in the community with like-minded people that are on the same level with you, that are 1-2 steps ahead of you, and experts in those fields. So instead of posting on Facebook, next time you have a question on where to sell your calves, or how could I do this for my business, or I'm looking for this type of person, you don't have to post it on the Facebook and get all these crazy answers. You can ask on this online mastermind, and you can get answers from people that you want answers from. Okay, so check the link below, check it out. I think you'll really like it. We'll see you in there.
So anything that I buy, it's protected to the downside that night with either a put option, which is basically a floor underneath those cattle. So I'll go on the futures market, and if let's say we're selling feeders today at 240, that's where we're trading on the board, I'll buy a put option at 238 or 240 for $5 or $6, and basically it costs me $5 or $6 a hundred to protect the downside on those cattle. So I'm net floored at 234, 235. No matter if the market goes to 290 or zero, I'm protected at 235. And we use a lot of LRP contracts, which is a livestock risk protection program, which basically is a subsidized put option through the government. And that's what I do a lot of. But then we also do, we'll do some more sophisticated trading. Like if the market rallies a whole bunch, let's say it goes from 240 to 290, I'll sell my put option at 235 and buy another one at 290. And so now my new floor is at 290. Well, I got all the upside on that cattle market move up. And so now those cattle that made $50 a head, if the market's at 290, I picked up $50 a hundred on the way up. Now, obviously I lost the $5 on the bought put, but we were able to put a lot of value in those cattle. And that's an extreme scenario. A lot of times you don't see a market move $50 a hundred, but in the last 4 or 5 years you have. And this is a different world than 20, 30 years ago. A lot of these older cattle feeders, to see the market move $4 or $5 on a set of fat cattle was a big deal. And now we see $4 or $5 swings every day. And it's a different beast. And the volatility's high, and the volatility means that's when the market's moving up and down fast. And the more volatility there is, the higher the put options and the sold call options cost. And basically, you're having to pay for what your protection is. And there's a lot of people that get their lunch eaten because this futures market is so volatile up and down that they just can't handle it. And, like I said, when you're buying a lot of these cattle today, $2,000 a head, $1,500 on a calf, interest at 8%. If you're not paying attention, get those cattle protected, and you're only making $25, $50 a head, one market move and you're underwater on those calves. Mm-hmm. And so I try to really, really study my lesson on my futures, and it's a portion, the health's a portion, but all in all, with everything together, we try to strive to be successful. And I get the futures wrong as much as anybody else, and we have sick cattle, but at the end of the day, I think that we're 70% right. And as long as you're 51% right, you're making money. Mm-hmm. And so that's what's important to us.
And do you hedge a lot and contract those cattle when you get them in, or?
I really don't like to straight hedge, because basically if I just straight hedge, I'm locking myself into that price. Mm-hmm. And I can't read the market. I can't bet the market better than anybody else, but I can study it a lot, and I can study long fund positions and short positions and managed money positions and commitment of traders. And I try to look at the trend lines of where the market is going. And if I think that it's going up, I dang sure don't want to be maxed out with a hedge, mm-hmm. because if I hedge at 235 and the market goes up, I'm paying margin calls, and that's all I'm going to get. So I like to use floors, basically LRP or a put. So that way, if the market goes down, I'm protected. But if it goes up, I get the upside. And the same thing, if I think the market's going down, I might straight hedge because I know that it's going down, or I suspect it's going down. Mm-hmm. And so it's just kind of trend line, what you feel, study the technical indicators. And I study the market like a hawk. I mean, that's all I care about. My wife, I've got a new baby girl, and my wife, we've been married for a year, but she says, do you think about anything else but the cattle market? Every night I just read about, the fundamentals and what's actually going on in the marketplace, because I want to know. It drives me crazy. That's what I live for. And if I can have one competitive edge that somebody else doesn't have, I might know. And the other thing is talking to people in the industry. I've got friends from Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota, all the way down to Texas, and I want to know what's going on out there so I can anticipate. And you obviously can't read the market, but you can have a very good feel for what's going on.
Mm-hmm. What is y'all's strategy? Like, what kind of cattle are y'all buying, like as far as weight, and then where are you taking them? Are you feeding them all the way out? Are you getting them straight and selling them, or how's that looking?
So we feed everything. Right now, what I've been doing is kind of two different protocols. One, I've been buying kind of lighter weight cattle, steers and bulls, weighing 400 or 500 pounds, and bringing them in the grow yard facility, turning them out on the grass traps and getting them healthy. And then I'm finished feeding all those because I think that there's value there. I don't think the feeder cattle are bringing what they're worth right now. And with the grid premiums we're getting on these cattle, it's better to feed them. The other thing that I'm doing is I am buying light 400-pound heifers out of like Iowa and eastern Nebraska that are really, really good quality, because our cow numbers are so low right now that I think that at some point we're going to have to rebuild this cow herd. So what I've been doing is I've been buying those cattle, lightweights, those heifers, and bringing them in my facility in Hamlin, and I'm not implanting them. I'm pelvic measuring them. I'm growing them up the right way and trying to turn them into replacement heifers. And I'm keeping back the best 20, 30% as replacements and putting good Angus bulls with them and breeding them. And then we're sending them to my mom and dad's ranches in Colorado and Oklahoma, and we're calving them out there. My sister's taking care of them. But the bottom 70% will feed. And, if worst case scenario, the genetics on those heifers is really good, and so they'll feed like a house of fire. And the top 20, 30%, they're going to be kept back and turned into mamas. And, when we're buying those heifers weighing 400 pounds for, $1,200, $1,300, and then they're paying their they're weighing my grow yard. They're paying all my guys, and they're paying their own way. And then I get to turn them into a mama cow. They're going to pay a lot of bills on a ranch one day and hopefully get a calf. And, so that's how we're making ends meet right now.
Yeah. And, I mean, it sounds like you got two different deals going on there. You're buying the high risk cattle out of the sale barns in Texas. And then, also I've seen, like you talk about your wheat cattle, you're bringing them from the north, basically turning them out on wheat and getting them big and then sending them back. It looked like this last year you sent like 11,000 head back north to different spots to sell.
Yeah, so our wheat pasture deal is pretty special. It's all under one fence, and it's 15,500 acres total. And obviously it's cross fenced, but on that scenario there's not a whole lot of really good northern cattle that get ran on wheat anywhere. There's a few in Kansas, but the wheat in Kansas is nowhere near what it is in Texas because of the heat degrees. But we ship the other thing that goes on is in the north, in the middle of winter, it's snowing, it's rainy, it's muddy, and nobody wants to buy those 4-weight calves and stick them in a feed yard and let them bog in mud and have a high cost to gain. And so we've found that the freight on those things, shipping them from the north down here and running them on wheat where they're going to gain 3-4 pounds a day and not have any health issues, not have to bog in any mud, have a low cost to gain. We bring those cattle down here, put 400 or 500 pounds on them, and then the quality's so good, we don't want to sell them in Texas or anything. And we found a lot of good buyers on them, and so we send them back north. And the problem with it is we've had so many in the past that, where are you going to go find one buyer to buy 10,000 head of steers? That's not a corporate feed yard. And I don't want to sell my cattle to a corporate feed yard because the corporate feed yard can't pay the big money. I want to sell them to the individual that's got the lowest corn and the most competitive ration and the most competitive yardage. And so that's why we try to break them up and send them into 2 or 3 different sale barns in Nebraska or Iowa or wherever it may be to try to get that competition on them. Because a farmer feeder, he can go in there and he might have a 75-cent cost of gain where a corporate might have $1 or 95. And the farmer feeder is going to give a whole heck of a lot more money for him because he might be betting on the market, whereas the corporate's just going to hedge him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a strategy I've never seen before is what y'all did. In, like you said, send them to different sale barns. Usually those cattle would go, like you said, straight to a feed yard or something like that.
Well, and it's a lot of risk. I had a guy call me one time and he said, do you carry your balls around in a wheelbarrow? And I said, well, what do you mean by that? He said, what if something went wrong? You ship 4,000 head to Nebraska and it's a wreck. What are you going to do? And I'm not scared. I'll just buy them back myself and feed them. People are scared of risk, and I think risk is opportunity because if you don't try it, how are you ever going to know it's not going to work, or if it will work? And if it doesn't work, I'll just catch them back myself and put them on feed.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to give a good product that I've worked my butt off for away to somebody. I either want to sell it for a better value or I'm going to feed it myself.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of traditionalists, they just look at get stuck in that, well, this is how it's always been done, or this is how I learned to do it, or whatever. And I mean, I talk to a lot of people in here. A lot of times they get on here and have stood out because they think outside the box and get creative and how they can seize an opportunity and solve a problem and think outside the box, especially in the cattle world and the ranching world. It's a whole different deal. You got to get creative of how you're going to make it work and do something that somebody else is not doing and stand out and get paid that premium.
Yeah, you have to have a competitive edge, or you're just going to be the same as everybody else. Mm-hmm. And we've tried to do several things. I was telling you about the elevator, and that's what really makes us successful in the Texas area. Your corn basis is huge in Texas. It's a positive most of the time of $1 to $3, and so we went and purchased our own elevator and source our own grain.
Yeah, tell that back up on that about what you were telling me a while ago on the elevator opportunity you saw. You're having to ship that seed in from a couple hours away, and then but it was coming from down the road, so it didn't make any sense.
Well, what was going on is all these guys, these farmers, there's no feed yard, grow yard type scenario where I'm at in Hamlin, north of Abilene. And so these guys were taking their wheat, corn, whatever it was, to a local elevator, and the elevator would make 40, 50 cents on it and ship it to Saginaw or LNC or whatever. And it cost $1 to get it there. Well, then I'd have to buy it from them. They'd put $50 a ton markup on it and ship it back to me for another $1. So it was $2, $3 by the time I got it back. And I said, well, hell with this. I'm just going to buy the local elevator. There was an elevator in Hamlin that had been run down and hadn't been operated in 4 or 5 years. And the guy that owned it was one of my best friends. And I just called him up one night and said, hey, what would it take to buy that thing? I need a place to store cattle feed. And we were able to work out a deal. And so now what we do is we bring all that grain in. I was telling you before we started, we took in 2 million bushels this summer. But what we do is we send the top end of the grain to an end user like a Viterra flour mill on our wheat. And then the bottom end, the trash wheat that's dirty, sprouted, whatever it might be, we retain that and then we feed it to cattle, and the cattle don't know the difference. And so we went from paying $2, $3 over basis to $2, $3 under basis. And that's made us extremely competitive because we can put cost of gain on in our yard for about the same as a Nebraska feed yard can right now. And so we get these. The reason these high-risk calves down here is cheap is A, the health's not very good, and B, there's no feed for them. And if you ship them out of here, they're going to get sick as hell up in Nebraska because they got a 12-hour truck ride getting wheat on smokestacks. And so we keep them local, put the pounds on cheap, and, we can ship them cattle out of here for nothing. Mm-hmm. And so that's how the elevator played into it. And I've loved agriculture, whether it's cattle, grain, whatever it is. I just want to be a part of ag. And if I can help a farmer or a rancher market his calves or his grain, we have a buying station also. And I want to be, so my granddad was the source of why I wanted to do everything I've done today. He was my best friend. We kind of grew up together. I'd go with him on the ranches every day in Colorado and Nebraska. And in that area, we have a buying station. We have a grain elevator. I want to be the guy that people trust, that they can rely on, that they know they're going to take their calves to and have a good, fair market on them, that they can bring their grain to. To be really honest, like on our grain, I want to kick everybody's butt because I can sell it to a flour mill. I can sell it to a calf. I can do whatever with it. Nobody's going to beat me in that area. Mm-hmm. And I want to be the best for those farmers so that they trust me and they want to bring me their grain and their calves, and we develop a relationship because a lot of those guys are awesome people, but they don't understand the futures market and they don't understand hedging. And I want to be able to help those people the best that I can, get the most money for their cattle or their grain, but still be able to trade those commodities and make it profitable for my business and my employees.
Yeah, and you're able to solve two problems there. You solve their problem of getting less money for their cattle or their grain because it's got so much freight and all these deductions in it. And then you're also able to help your operation and getting value out of it and getting those local calves that are probably in better health and not have been run through the sale barn and all that stuff. So you're getting an opportunity there, and you're helping your local farmer and rancher out.
And that's kind of my goal. I think that where I live is one of the best communities, not only in the state of Texas, but in the United States. And I love it. I'm the mayor of Hamlin, and I want my community to be strong. And so if I can keep those dollars locally and employ people, and whether it's at the elevator or the cattle company or whatever, employ local people and then help local farmers and ranchers get more for their cattle or their crop, it builds a strong, tight-knit community where we're successful. Whereas I'm not taking credit for this, but before I came to town, there was a lot of problems there was a lot of broke people, and it is a poor community. And I'm not saying that we've completely changed that, but I fight hard for the community to keep those dollars there. And I think that's really important because the world that we live in today, dollars are going to the big cities and the big businesses, and I think it's important to keep it local and keep it with your small town people, small town businesses. That's what made America, and I'm tired of our dollars going overseas into these big corporate companies.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just you get so disconnected from, because I deal with small businesses. That's what I try to help also, because I would rather go, help somebody local or help somebody I know and spend money with them, even if it costs a little bit more, than go to the corporation or the chain store or whatever. And you're probably going to get less of a product, and you're definitely going to get less of an experience.
Right.
And like you said, a lot of times, like, it doesn't help your community to go do that. And if you can keep those dollars local and support those small businesses and those people in your community, it usually just circulates there instead of leaving and going and funding the stuff that you hate, even if you don't hate it, you're way disconnected from it.
Right.
Or in today's world, that it's the opposite end of the spectrum of what your values and your morals and your ideas are.
That's exactly right. And once those dollars leave, you're never going to get them back. And that's what's killing small communities is those dollars leave and they never come back. We've done a lot of things in Hamlin. We've taken some profits from the cattle company and the elevator, and we've invested in a clothing store and a restaurant and rental properties. And what I'm trying to do is employ people to fix up properties, put people to work in a restaurant, put people to work in a clothing store, a laundromat, or whatever it is, to try to make our community strong. And if one of my businesses makes money, I want to reinvest it in my community. And I think that's what makes us successful. And I hope that in 20, 30 years, that community is stronger than ever because of the things we've done today.
Yeah. Talk about those different aspects that you have going on there in Hamlin.
So I've got, I think that real estate in our area is extremely affordable. I've got 46 rental homes that I've purchased in the last 4 or 5 years, and all of them cost under $70,000. And you think, oh man, they're probably junkers. No, they're pretty good housing. I'd live in them myself. And what I think's going on, we've got all these people moving in from other states because they want to be in Texas. Texas is the awesome state, low cost of living. We live in one of the cheapest places to live in the United States. I mean, food, groceries, housing, whatever it may be, it's cheap. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity. So we're buying those homes, employing people to fix them up, and then a lot of the people that work for me get to live in one of those homes or whatever. And I try to bring good people in from other communities too, because in the cattle business, grain business, whatever it is, you have to have specialty employees. You can't just go get a Seth Keeler or a Rick Bays, anywhere. So I had to bring those people in. My secretary at the grain elevator, she was running a co-op in Kansas, So I bring those people in to try to make our community stronger, and you just don't find people like that anywhere. And those people's kids are going to school in Hamlin, and they're making Hamlin a stronger town, not only through the school, but just being citizens. And Hamlin has an awesome school. We have a collegiate ISD. You can graduate high school in Hamlin with a associate's degree. And so we're trying to do a lot of things, not only with the cattle business. The cattle business is the bread and butter, but we're trying to expand and do some other different things to diversify. I think it's really important. You might lose your butt in the cattle business, but you'll have 40 rental homes that are making a little money, or the grain business might be good this year, or a restaurant might make a little money. But overall, I want to diversify. I want to provide jobs, and kind of my goal at the end of my life is whatever skill that I have, whether it's entrepreneurship or taking care of my employees or whatever it may be. I just want to leave this world a better place and try to use every skill that God gave me to impact my community. And I think there's a lot of people right now in this world that they have no morals, they have no drive, they have no nothing. They just want to sit on their butt and get a check. And I want to be 135% opposite of that. And anything that I can do to employ people or grow a community, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. And what is your, I saw some pictures on Facebook, I think, of the diner. Y'all bought a diner and fixed it up. And was it the Mayberry? Is that what you're calling it?
Yeah. So there's a family in Hamlin, Mayberry family, and they had the original diner in town. Well, my favorite show is the Andy Griffith Show. They're always eating at the Mayberry Diner. So I thought, heck, I'll just call it the Mayberry Diner. And so it was actually a kind of a little strip mall complex that had a restaurant, a laundromat, and then just an open space in it. And it had been listed for sale for probably 6 or 8 months, and nobody was buying it. I really didn't need it or want it or anything, but I called on it and I said, what will they take on it? And at the time, I can't remember the exact numbers, $300,000 or $400,000. And I said, well, what does the laundromat make? Well, the laundromat would make the payment plus some, and I didn't have to do anything. I'd just go collect the quarters and fix a washer if it broke. So I bought the laundromat, and then we decided it's going to pay for itself with a laundromat. So then we put in the clothing store in the empty building, and now we're doing the Mayberry Diner because there's not a whole lot of places to eat in Hamlin. We've got one restaurant that's about to close, and I like to eat, so it's going to be kind of cool. We're going to do American foods, and I love ice cream, so we're going to have an ice cream bar and everything. It's going to be kind of a 50s, 60s style diner with history based around Hamlin, and kind of some cattle company stuff, but just elevator stuff, but just focus it on old times. I like that era, and pretty old school. So that's what's going on.
Where did you learn all this stuff? I mean, not only the cattle business, I mean, that's very specialized, the futures and all that stuff. But what about diversifying into the real estate and opening other businesses and looking at real estate like that and other investments?
I guess I probably get it from my dad. My dad's always been an entrepreneur. If he could, my aunt says that my dad could read the newspaper and make money, and no arrogance to that at all. It's just, it's not about the money for my dad or I. We don't give a damn about the money, but we want to make an impact on our community. And if you see an opportunity, why not jump on it? I try to recognize skills that people have. And if I've got a guy that he can run a restaurant, amazing. I've seen people in my community that they've opened up their own restaurant and failed because they didn't understand financials and budgeting and things like that. But they were awesome restaurant operators. And I thought, I got to take a guy like that and use his skill set, and I'll manage the money for him, and we'll have an awesome place to eat. And he'll have a good job, and we can employ 4 or 5 other people. And I've tried to use that, through the people that run the elevator and the feed store and whatever it might be. I don't want to run a feed store. My bread and butter is the elevator and the cattle. That's my passion. But if I can go find somebody that can run a feed store or can run a restaurant or can run a clothing store or can, the reason I bought all the rental properties, a guy showed up at my doorstep that was broke, that needed a job. He came from California, and he was working 200 hours every 2 weeks going broke, because that's how bad the economy is in California. And he had a rental. He was a property manager for a rental company. He could fix them, he could rent them, he could do whatever. And I said, shoot, we got to give this guy a shot. And he started processing cattle. And I bought him 4 or 5 homes to start out, and it's just grown from there. But I try to recognize people's skills and use them to benefit them, but not only that, but benefit the business as a whole.
Yeah. What are your goals for the future? You think you're just gonna keep expanding as far in Hamlin there, doing different business ventures, rental property, and then growing the cattle and grain operation?
I think for now, my main interest is Hamlin. That's the only place I want to be. I think there's tremendous financial opportunity there, but not only that, but the pride in that community is more than I've ever seen. The people that work for me, they have more pride not only in their community, but their job and their horses, their families. And you don't just get that anywhere in the United States. In Colorado or wherever it might be, it's hard to even get somebody to show up for work. And these guys are beating me to work. They're proud to work for that brand. And so that's why I love that area. Eventually one day I'd like to own a ranch in Montana or South Dakota or something, just to say I did and run grass cattle in the summer or something. I love Montana and South Dakota, that area. The climate's awesome. The grass is awesome. And I like to be able to spend some time up there with grass cattle, And I've got a few lease places right now between my family and then lease places outside in Nebraska that we turned summer grass cattle out on. And, I just love going up there. It's kind of a slower pace of life up there. But long-term plans, Hamlin till I die.
Yeah.
And kind of the story behind that, I told you a little bit about my grandpa. He's buried right across the road from the cattle company. And so his grave's right there. So, and on the sign, we've got a quote from him, right before he was a Freemason. So obviously his moral standards were high, and he was a cattleman. But what's important to me about this, he wanted to do what I do, but he never had the money. And he worked his entire life to put my dad into school where he could start making some money. And it took him working his butt off, my dad working his butt off, to be able to get the point we're at now, where we've put all this knowledge together. And when he died, my granddad, my mom was holding his hand, and she said, I just want to thank you, you know, for raising these boys up and having good morals and instructions. And he was about to pass away, and he leaned up and he opened his eyes and he said, and everything I did the best I could. And he just closed his eyes and he died. And I've never forgot that. I've got it on my sign today, and I kind of dedicate everything I do to him because I want to make him proud. And that was his community, you know, and those people, a lot of them still remember him, and they call me and they say, man, he was one of the best people I've ever met. And so everything that goes on there is dedicated to his legacy.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people think of that generational wealth and stuff like that and legacy as the money that gets left behind from your family members that die and stuff. But a lot of times, from what I've learned, is those rich families that just are legacy families that stay wealthy and grow their wealth and keep it going for generations is not just the monetary part, but the knowledge. You teach, you want to, like you said, teach the knowledge and keep passing that down and hopefully keep growing that so the operation can keep growing, and then with that the money follows. And then also not only that, but the reputation and the contact list. You know, if you know everybody knows your name from that association and it's a good association, like, yeah, I'll give this kid a chance because his dad was a good guy or his grandpa was a good guy or whatever, you're going to get into a lot more doors through that name. And that's where that generational, that legacy, all that stuff comes into play, I think. Not just passing down a bunch of money, because you can piss that off pretty quick.
Well, and one of the things that I think is really important is you look at a lot of these rich families, their kids, and I'm not saying by any means we're rich, okay? But a lot of these rich families, their kids ain't worth a damn. They're lazy. They've never had to work for anything in their life. And I think it's extremely important that we set a precedence for the guys that we get to work with, not those guys work for us and they're brothers, you know, or sisters or whatever it is. And if they're out doctoring cattle, we need to be out there with them. And you need to be the dirtiest guy on the place because you're the leader for everybody else around there. And your operation will never be successful if you try to just manage it from a desk or something like that. You need to be the leader of that operation, and you need to be the hardest worker. I would say that over the course of my business career, there has been nobody that has consistently outworked me. You know, when I got started, I would wake up at 4 a.m. I would go feed cattle in the dark with a feed truck. And then as soon as daylight would hit, I would go doctor them with a dart gun out of the window of the feed truck if I saw sick. And then by the time I got done feeding, tending to things, if there was some sicks, I'd go rope them, doctor them, pull them, whatever. And then I'd jump in a truck and go to the sale barn, a semi, buy cattle, and then get those cattle loaded out at 10, 11 at night and drive home, sleep on the chute, unload them, and 5 o'clock the next morning, do it all again. And I remember I do that Monday through Friday, and I remember my eyes would be bloodshot by Friday. And from Saturday at noon, when I got into doctored cattle till Monday morning, I'd sleep. I wouldn't wake up. But I wanted to be something. I wanted to leave something for my kids one day and make my granddad and my dad proud. And, you know, there's a lot of people that they'll never work that hard. I've had people tell me before, you're willing to work too hard. But the work doesn't matter to me. I want to use every skill that I got. And if there's an opportunity to do something, why would you sit on your ass and not do anything?
Most small businesses fail in the first 5 years of opening. There's a few issues that cause businesses to close. 1 is paying too much in overhead expenses. 2 is not getting enough customer traffic. And 3 is not converting enough of that traffic into sales. If you want to ensure success in your business, these issues must be addressed. Check out the link below and book a call with me to see how we can help keep your business open and thriving so you're not just another statistic.
You know, I think that's where I don't want to be given anything. I want to take what my dad and mom learned and continue their legacy, but also try to add to it and be better. The true test of a bull is his prodigy. My dad's amazing. My mom's amazing. But I want to do everything in my capability to make them proud and be better than they ever were. And I don't know if I'll ever get it done, but I'm damn sure going to try my hardest to make sure that whatever I am, whenever I die, I give it everything I could, and people want to reflect that. If I can be a leader to a young kid or whatever it might be to change their life where they want to be better. I do a lot of motivational speaking because I want to influence people and I want to leave a legacy.
Mm-hmm. And I saw that too. You had posted you've got a guy coming to talk in Hamlin. What's the story on that? And I didn't recognize that name. So a little bit about him and then like what you're trying to do there.
So what's going on with that is, in the world that we live in today, whether it's a small community or our country or the world, we've got wars across the country. We've got a country in our United States fighting against each other, whether it's Democrat, Republican. I don't care which one you are. They're all crazy. But I'm tired of the fighting, and in a small town like this, I'm trying to encourage them that we don't have to fight with each other. We can see things differently and still move forward. And obviously I'm a conservative guy, but what I'm trying to do there is bring people together to see a bigger picture than politics or a bigger picture than a war. What we do every day and how we take care of each other and how we live our lives is detrimental to how we'll spend eternity. And a lot of people in a poverty-stricken area have never had a leader or a role model or a dad or a mom, And so what I'm trying to do with this motivational speaker is bring the community together. This was a gentleman that he's called the Supersonic Survivor. And kind of his story is he was a fighter pilot. And I actually heard this story at Pokey Feeders. They brought him in as a speaker, a feedlot in Kansas that we feed cattle with. But he was a fighter pilot, and he was basically flying and instruments failed and the plane started going down. And he was going 800 miles an hour and was ejected out of the plane. He ejected himself out of the plane. And then he had 2 broken legs. He had a broken arm. His face was ripped off. His lips were ripped off. And he survived in the Atlantic Ocean for 4 or 5 hours just fighting for his life. He aired up a tube with his lips ripped off. And the story that he told that really touched me was not only how hard he worked for survival, but he never once wanted to complain about it. When the Coast Guard got there to get him, his legs were broken and they're swimming him into the helicopter, and his legs are flailing. It hurts like hell. He said, I didn't want to complain because they had a mission. And, I think that people in this world we live in today, if anything gets hard, they want to quit or they want to complain or they want to give up. And I'm tired of that mentality. I hate it. I want to speak life into people and make them want to do something with their life. And this guy really inspired me to not only work hard, but have a positive attitude and don't complain about whatever your situation is. Anybody can find a reason to bitch. And I want to be able to have a positive leadership outlook where when we're in tough times, whether it's cattle market or whatever, this market's falling hard all the time. Do you quit and give up and go to the house, or do you keep buying cattle? There's not a day that I pull my order because things are going good, things are going bad, I'm going to stay in. And if you're going to have guts and you're going to have glory, you can't just give up when times get tough. And that's kind of what this guy reflected to me was we've got a strong feed yard behind us that helps us feed cattle. And then we've got a strong family behind us. And we're going to give it everything we've got every day and give her hell.
Yeah, that's a great mentality to have. And definitely, hearing those stories and all that's, motivating you, like really makes you reflect on life and like, dang, I've been a sissy my whole life, and makes you want to try harder. And it's great to spread that message. That's try to spread positivity as much as possible through my platforms. And, because like you said, I think you got to kind of pass that on. Like that's what's changed me is consuming that positivity through different people. And then if I can share that light through my platforms and help somebody, then.
Yeah. And I've watched your shows, and it's really encouraging not only for people to learn, but just get to see all the new faces and the legacy that all these different people have left. It's a tremendous platform to share.
Yeah. What's the best business advice you've got?
Don't be scared of anything, but you have to use calculated risk. What I've found is there's a lot of people who are extremely, extremely conservative in their business practices. And then there's people that are just wide open and they're just crazy, you know? And I don't think the guy that's crazy, he might have a one-hit wonder and he's going to make a lot of money and then he'll probably lose it the next year. You know, just like this cattle market. There's a lot of guys, if you look at our industry, we're like 47% protected on the futures. If we have a black swan event or something, or the shorts get really high, they're going to be wiped out. But I would just say, don't be too extreme, whether it's conservative or super bullish. You know, my broker is good for me because I want to get after it. And he's like, oh, we need to think about this a little bit. Let's calm down. Let's put a little risk management on, you know, and, which I understand, but at the same time, you can't just sit there in a ball all the time being scared. You kind of got to balance it. And I use calculated risk. You know, if I've got a gut feeling, I protect my downside, but I leave a lot of opportunity to go up. Mm-hmm. And if I think that this market's going to crash, I'm going to be 110, 120% short because I want to write it down, you know, and I had this conversation with my broker quite a bit, but if I go broke, what does it matter? I'm 28 years old. You know, I'll start over. I mean, there's been times that I've traded diesel futures, heating oil, or you know, silver. I mean, sometimes you got to take a little risk and be something, you know. And I would just say that don't get too influenced to any extreme. Mm-hmm. You know, be diversified and take calculated risk.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the risk taker side, and like I have that same mentality. Like I'm already broke, so I'm just gonna be a little bit more broke, I guess. Yeah. You know, it's not gonna change my life a whole lot to lose on, you know, this or that or whatever it is. So might as well just take it and try it out.
Well, and if you're 60 years old, you know, you don't want to bet the ranch on it, but when I started, I had $4,000 of my personal cash that I went and got a line of credit with, you know, and so. You know, I've made some money, but if you go broke, we'll just start over. I know what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And I think I told you that, you know, I lost several $1 million when I got started and made it back. You know, it took what I lost in 1 year and made 12 years later, we got it back. But
I mean, and you get that knowledge, and that's what I mean. There's different levels. Like a lot of the people that I listen to that are real big and wealthy and have had successful business, that's what they'll tell you. They'll say, you know, I'm not scared to take a risk because I know how to make it back, you know. Yeah. And if you do lose, then you're gonna get that lesson and apply it in the future and better protect yourself, and maybe you can go about it a different way. But it seems like when somebody figures it out, how to accumulate it and how to make things cash flow and invest and start businesses and whatever the aspect is, then it's like you can take it all away, but they know how to get it back.
Right. And like I said earlier, risk is opportunity, and you don't have to be right every time. You just have to be right 51% of the time, mm-hmm. and you will grow a little more than you were yesterday, and then you can grow a little more. And that's what I've tried to do is if I made some money, I try to invest it in a business or land or a house, whatever it is, to keep those dollars protected. You know, land's a safe long-term investment. It should appreciate. Housing should appreciate. And just sound business practices that are long-term successful.
Mm-hmm. What's some of the best ranching advice you've gotten?
Oh, I guess the bigger the better. More cattle. My grandpa used to yell that when we were processing. He'd say more cattle, you know. I guess just enjoy it. You know, you get to do something that the whole world, for the most part, envies or looks up to. You know, the American cowboy is an icon, whether it's here or in China or Japan or whatever it is. You know, it's an icon. And so, you know, don't just do it to do that, but do it because it's part of your lifestyle and enjoy every second of it. You get to people and they complain about the market and they complain about having to work when it's raining and muddy and whatever. And, you know, it's an opportunity. Yeah, times get tough, but you get to live the dream. You know, you get to live out in the country on land. You know, you're not stuck in a city, and just enjoy that time that you get with your horses and your livestock, and it's not a job. It's a blessing.
Yeah. Like the Navy used to say, it's not a job and it's an adventure.
Yeah.
If somebody wasn't listening to this whole conversation and you could just tell them in one little sentence or paragraph, what advice would you give to somebody that's wanting to get started in the ranching business or in the cattle business, or, I mean, you even have experience in general business. What would you tell somebody wanting to get started?
I would say that work ethic is the only thing that'll set them apart. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how many degrees you have. If you're willing to put in the effort to learn, to work your butt off. I'm not smarter than most people that are doing what I'm doing, and I don't have a degree. I don't have the background that they do, but there's none of them that'll outwork me. And if you're willing to learn and truly get after it, I mean, there's been times when we opened up that elevator, I had a guy that was working for me that he passed out, and he said, "Boss, you're working me too hard." And we looked, and in 13 days or 14 days, he'd worked 200 something hours. And I know he was leaving 3 or 4 hours before me every day, but just get in there. And if you see an opportunity like that elevator, you're the guy that leads the charge. And if you want to make it work, you got to be there 24 hours a day, making it successful. And I didn't know a dang thing about grain. I didn't know a dang thing about trading flour for wheat or wheat for flour, but I learned. And if you want to do anything in this world and you believe in yourself, we live in America with every opportunity in the world. If you want to go buy a Ford pickup, work your butt off, buy a Ford pickup. If you want to have 20,000 stocker cattle, anybody can do it, because I did. If you're willing to work and put the time in and make it your life, you'll be successful.
On a lighter note, what's your favorite restaurant?
Texas Roadhouse. Texas Roadhouse or Joe Allen's.
I've never heard Texas Roadhouse before, but that's what Miles said too. So,
well, I eat, and this is bad, but I eat the barbecue chicken.
Yeah,
I get the barbecue chicken and sirloin. I got all these cattle, but I get the barbecue chicken.
Well, we talked about this with Lee, but like if I go to a restaurant, I better be damn sure it's going to be a good steak, because I can eat a good steak at home,
Yeah.
So if I go to a restaurant and I'm not too sure on the quality, I'm not afraid to eat chicken or fish or whatever.
Well, and we're spoiled. We got Joe Allen's there in Abilene, and they're kind of the best steakhouse anywhere. Mm-hmm. And so whenever we want to go out on it, we go to Abilene maybe once a month. We don't leave Hamlin very often, but when we do, that's where we go eat. That or Texas Roadhouse.
Yeah.
I just like Texas Roadhouse because it's cheap.
Yeah. How can people find you if they want to learn more about how you got started and all that, and keep up with you? Where can they find you?
So we've got a Facebook page, Teague Cattle or Hamlin Elevator, and then I have a personal Facebook page, Tucker Teague. But the main thing that feeds most of our social media is the Teague Cattle page, and that's where we post our shipping videos and things like that.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty intriguing. Like I like watching Cowboy stuff, and it's pretty cool seeing that big herd of cattle and gathering them and everything.
That deal there, that shipping's crazy, and that's something that I think anybody should see. Because you have all those cattle in one spot, and when they come off wheat pasture, that wheat is either really good or it's gone. And when you start shipping 12, 15, 18,000 head, that's 20, 30, 40 trucks a day. And when we're shipping, there's 2 chutes, and we've got Cowboy stacked up everywhere, sorting and shipping and whatnot. And we'll have 1,000, 1,500 head shipped by 8:30 in the morning. Start weighing trucks at 5:30. And the guy that owns that place is my partner on a lot of these cattle, and he's wild, man. And when he's screaming and hollering at you, you'll be loading trucks pretty fast. But we averaged it last year, and it would take us two minutes to load a cattle pot, and we've got them side by side. So 2 minutes, 2 trucks rolling
through them. Yeah. Takes them longer to back up and put their mud boots on.
Yeah, and if they hit the chute wrong the first time, I've seen a few truck drivers knocked out before. So if you show up, you better know how to back your truck up to the chute.
Yeah, get a little practice in before you show up.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. I appreciate you coming on, and it's a cool story to see somebody start out and grow something so big and be so passionate about their community. And investing back into it. So y'all go support Tucker and Teague Cattle, and reach out to him if you got any questions on how to get started, anything like that. And we'll see y'all next time.